Hello, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Let's play chess. All right. All right. I want to review this game. This was a very interesting game. It had a really cool feel to it. Some dynamically balanced factors. Let's take a look. Okay, not accurate. So that's a bummer. I would have thought this was accurate, but instead not. A little bit of a bummer, but I really feel the game had a unique feel to it. I believe the game had a unique feel to it. So let's go forward from here. Now here, most often with black to move, black will play knight c6. It's not the only move. Knight c6 is of course the four knights, and bishop b4 is a good try. It's definitely a good book move. To which knight d5 is a book response, and some of the ideas here are that the bishop usually moves out of the way, but then might be pushed around a bit. So my opponent played the best move, which is knight takes d5, and then after d takes d5, castle king side, everybody's been playing some real good, solid moves. I decided on c3 to help buttress or support a pawn push to d4 with, like I said, with tempo, or like I said, with support, but also with tempo here. And this is the first moment where I thought maybe my opponent had boo-booed with bishop c5. I would say instead of bishop c5, probably bishop e7. It seems like the bishop has lost time from b4 to and then back to e7, and he has, but white's moves haven't really capitalized on an emphasis on time myself, or for white's self. White's moves haven't capitalized on trying to control initiative. Really, I mean initiative. So I think bishop e7 was the better move here. A better move here. Sorry. And yeah, so that's not even that good a move. We see here that Torch prefers the opportunistic move, e takes d4, right? Trying to stay afloat in terms of material. E takes d4 also opens up the e file, and whose king is safe and whose king is yet to become safe. So e takes d4 keeps things level here for black, but that's not what was played. Or was that? I messed it up. Here bishop e7 should be included, I'd say. I think bishop e7. Let's take a look on practice. Bishop to e7. No, not to there. That was the computer move. Here was bishop to d6. I thought bishop e7 is good enough. Maybe not. All right. d4, a bit of an inaccuracy because of e takes d4. Save for e takes d4. d4 definitely gains ground, and we're taking back with the d pawn. Again, Torch finding lots of small errors here. I take back with the d pawn because I can close up the e file with bishop to e2. Almost, anytime I want to. And even if it weren't for that, I could close up the e file with bishop to e3, even stronger, and very stoic and solid against attacks along the e file. So I'm not as worried about exposing the e-file to white's king. As I am about losing a pawn. Not only that, but we have a tempo of initiative to gain in the process with an attack against c5. Bishop will go back to e7, or perhaps b4 check. It's not really clear, but um, Torch likes bishop b4 check the most. It sort of forces white to fumble his pieces in front of his king here with bishop d2, and there could be trades or not. But while the bishop's fighting against the e1 a5 diagonal, then rook e8 check looks really strong for black, and I would rather play the line in the game provided by the mistake bishop to b6. Right. I'm looking ahead here. This might not be such a great move, such a great game to go over. This is fruit punch down here. All this colors and such. Yeah, this is not a very accurate game. So I'm gonna move this into just play automatically. Have something really important beyond the game level. Like if it's more important for development of a player as a whole, I might highlight that. But all these moves are misses. There's going to be a great move, then probably a blunder or a mistake. It's too loose. This is too loose. The play here is far too loose. So be that the case, I would like to play this out against computer from the position resigned. We're here with black to move, and black's in real trouble because I can capture that bishop and the queen that follows and have a very strong game hereafter. Let's get the material trade underway. Alright, so I'm tempted to c3 to sort of get into the action. I'm tempted to a3 to babysit the pawn on a2. I'm tempted to b3 to kind of hedge between those two things. I'm probably going to go with c3, but I want to give b3 a good look. King to c3 loses the pawn on a2, but then the king is an active player in this endgame. What I don't like about that is I guess my bishop's covering a4, but were it not for that, we have a rook on the a file. Is check, 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 over and over. Could force my king into a position where he's vulnerable. Could clear space for black to launch some kind of queenside pawn rush. So I'm not right away sure about king to c3. Then again, e3 is covered twice by black pieces. So maybe king to c3. Now, a3 is not the move because you can perform the same task of a3 by playing king to b3. Or sorry, you can perform the same task of king to a3 as you would if it were king to b3. So b3 is just superior, doesn't block the pawn, is still controlling. Then if there's, and b3, there's no good check for black to follow up. He's gonna grab on f2 most likely, and that's not the end of things. The f2 pawn wasn't driving the position. Anyway, so let's play it here. Let's play king to b3. This is observed as an inaccuracy by Torch. We will play on the inaccuracy, but I want to note what move was best. Ah. Okay, that's interesting. The king stays passive on b1. I'm going to go with that because look, when as an inaccuracy, it's an inaccuracy to the point of 1.3 pawns. is about as probably about as strong as an inaccuracy can be. So we're gonna move uh, king to b1 then. Now I'm taking on g5 because these pawns will crumble one after each other. There's the idea perhaps of rook to g2 to control f2 or the other rook to g2 with the same in mind. But I don't like that because that leaves me vulnerable to checks along the back rank. Plus these pawns I think I can get. I might be able to get both of them. Let's see. Both of them? The pin is on the f. The pin is a pin on the g6 pawn. As if captures, then we overpower black's defenders on g7. Now at this point, I'm looking. Do I want to capture on g5 with my bishop or my rook? Rook sort of keeps things neat and tidy, and my opponent might move his rook to e7. There's even the scare at f7 against my bishop. I'm thinking more often e7 with the intent of playing rook to e2 and then having these hogs. Are they called hogs? Is that even fair? Having these two rooks on the second here, and they can bully in many circumstances. They can bully to a draw. Just maintain some kind of perpetual check. Or if you have a rook on c1 or a piece on c1, watch out because then it's rook at a2. A rook comes to b2 and says checkmate, and you have no escape square. So that's a dangerous thing. Maybe that's dangerous enough to want to aim to prevent. It can't happen here because even after bishop takes g5, the c2 square is covered, and that'll be enough for when the king tries king to c1. Then we have these pair of rooks here. Whichever rook needs to give check is going to go to c2, and then bishop comes in and snipes him. Bishop takes c2. So white is not actually vulnerable to this type of attack yet. So with that information in mind, I can better inform my decision on g6. I think now I also have to be concerned with f3. Now, I like rook takes g6. It's more solid. Kind of keeps things together a little bit better. Now, just as I say that, I'm sure Torch has bishop takes g6 now. No, Torch wants me to defend my pawns. This means that my ideas on the G file were more accurate, or enduring, or powerful than I thought. I will not go with that. I can do fine after rook takes g6. Rook takes g6. Now notice what white gets. This is the type of thing that, no offense to our software and chess software developers here, this is the type of thing that still, to some extent, even with computers as powerful as they are, sometimes get this a little bit off. The power of the move, bishop to e6. This is a long-term self-protecting dyad here on the D&E files, and the bishop has no problem whatsoever keeping a hold over h3 for as long as necessary, really. So we're securing two pawns and putting our extra piece in a place where he's very safe. I'm not liable to see. I'm anxious to see how bishop to e6 is evaluated. Is evaluated at best. All right. It should be. It's the best move. So, and uh, King B2 or King C2 doesn't matter so much. C2 is slightly better. He's gonna give me a check on the second rank anyway, and of course we maintain control of our pawn with King to B3. I say we go high here. Okay. King H7. I'm critical of this move. The move is to hit at White's rook on G6. I feel like rook to A3 is just a more realistic try, forcing your opponent to come up with the idea of retreating back to G2 with his advanced rook. Alright. King to H7 puts against White a shot. An easy to refute shot. We just escape along the G file, most likely. Yeah, probably along almost anywhere along the G file. Rook to A3 is an idea. You cannot combat this idea with a natural or reflex type of chess move. Rook to A3, you have to find the idea to beat it. And the idea is rook to G2. So I'm actually going to go ahead and enter in rook to A3 here. Right? We don't have to. We have a little bit extra than my opponent. We don't want to give up our A2 pawn for no good reason either. So. So this is a long think position. In a tournament, I would be thinking about this position for a very long amount of time. It's going to lead to a lot of different technical type of endgames. If we play rook to G8 check is an idea, and the king obviously is moving to H7 there. I'll keep it to one moves on these exploratory moves or indications. D takes C6 is an idea. That's of course if that works. I'm not sure that that's. Now there are ideas. Perhaps I'm not sure about this either. King to B4 to harass or harry or move Black's rook. We would consider this move probably towards the end because there are just so many different moves available for the Black rook at A3. Yeah, so King to B4 is a very serious consideration, but this is why, like I said, in a tournament game, you need your clock on a move like this as White. C6. If you want to play D takes C6, you'd be willing to give up this great thing we had with our bishop, where the bishop's on E6. But then again, D takes C6, B takes C6, and bishop back to G4, either immediately or soon thereafter. That's not so bad because of follow-ups like rook to G6, where the rook might have these two pawns flat-footed along the 6th rank. D takes C6, B takes C6. I don't know, in a hurry, that's what you try first. So if this is a blitz game, you try D takes C6, B takes C6. There's no immediate and clear wrong as a result. So let's go back to just the moves. We're thinking rook to G8 is still on my mind. I'm thinking king to b4 is still on my mind. D takes c6 is still on my mind. There's even perhaps bishop to c8. Bishop to d7 too, but I don't. Bishop d7 just doesn't do it for me because that there's an exchange of pawns on the d file, and then the bishop's just voila in a different place. Hold on a sec. Think about this: that this pawn and this pawn are actually quite sewn down. These guys are strong. I like bishop c7 now. Let's. Now I'm thinking I'm going to prune some moves. D takes c6. Bishop c7. I'm not moving my rook to g8 because this leaves a2 unguarded, and whatever we have here or don't have here against the king, that's not enough. So we're down to bishop d7 or d takes c6. Flexibility. We have only these 3 pawns. We don't want to go. We can't trade pawn for pawn. All right, so we're doing bishop to c7. Okay. I feel confident about what happened. King to b4. He's got only 1 square on the a file. He's got a lot of squares that are safe or better along the 5th rank. Notice bishop takes c6, loses the bishop after rook to c6 check, king moves, and then capturing on c6. So right now I'm going to go with king to b3. I think I see white gaining material here. Okay. Okay, so that did it. We did well there. We did well. More gravity. You did well there. All right. Fascinating endgame. That was a fascinating and fun endgame. I think that's gonna be it for this session, my friends. This sitting, what did we do? This was earlier. We played the one game and won, and it was a really fantastic game. Close this tab. This tab keep open just for a moment. Make sure we have its representation as a analysis correct. 74 PG6, 74 PG6. So we can close the practice. And this was the game as it were in reality or on the server, so to speak. And then this is the game that we played out afterwards. Accurate now with the game played out all the way to checkmate. All those accurate endgame moves help make the game overall more accurate. Right. Let's maybe just review this one more time. Yeah, some of the fruit punch in the middle game. That's humans being analyzed by computers. There's nothing wrong with it. It just in a game that's very complicated, the computer and the human will both make some kind of disagreements. The move of the game. Let's go move of the game. Here's the so-called blunder to let me in. You're looking at that and you say that doesn't look like a blunder. That looks like Black's got a battery aimed at White's king, or just about. But it led to a great move. I found a great move here. Bishop to g6, and this was the bishop to g5. Sorry, White bishop to g5, and my opponent resigned because there are too many threats to handle all at once. So we'll continue from there. Yeah. Did I say white when I meant black? I get the colors confused. I have to pay attention to that. Bishop e6 was nifty. We handled this situation with the king well. Bishop d7. I told you some of these moves would be a long think, right? After c6, I said a long think If you could go back and rewind, if you don't believe me, maybe you recall though that I played bishop to d7. This was not one of the first moves I thought. This was not one of the like pawn to h4 or whatever else. This came on almost at the end, almost late. But that's what happens as a result of a long think. You can find moves that are better than reflex moves. Sometimes still the reflex move is the way to go, but a long think can at least show you the option of a move like bishop to d7. Once either side has 3 or fewer pawns, the side with 3 or fewer needs to be very careful about pawn sacrifices and pawn trades. Like this pawn, this pawn on a2, that's my baby. Okay, that's my baby. It's gonna be a draw without that pawn on the board, but I can just sort of finesse things. Gather up the a5 enemies. Gather up the black pawn on a5, a6. Bring the bishop in for good measure. a7 and then the queen. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Gravitrons. I'm More Gravity. Have a great night.